There are moments in life when the ground beneath you shatters, when everything you thought was secure crumbles, and you're left standing in the ruins, confused, abandoned, aching from the weight of a pain that no one else seems to understand. But hear me clearly now, chosen one, that pain was never your punishment. That pain was your portal. You were never meant to stay where they left you. You were never created to fit in with those who could not comprehend your soul. And that agony you carried, that wasn't meant to destroy you. It was divinely designed to unlock you. You see, the moment you were marked by heaven, the path before you became sacred. And sacred paths are not always smooth. Sacred paths are carved through fire, through betrayal, through nights of weeping that seem to stretch into forever. But don't you dare mistake the fire for failure. Don't you confuse the silence of God with his absence. He was there all along, watching, shaping, refining. The ones around you thought you were breaking down, but God knew you were breaking open. That heartbreak, it wasn't punishment, it was revelation. That betrayal, it wasn't rejection, it was redirection. That delay, it wasn't denial, it was divine timing resetting the course so you wouldn't settle for less than what he designed for your destiny. What felt like death was just the shedding of everything that couldn't go with you to the next level. Chosen one, you've been misunderstood because you were never meant to be understood by the world. You carry a frequency that doesn't register on common wavelengths. Your spirit has been encoded with something eternal, and the temporary world cannot decode it. That's why you've walked through life feeling like an outsider, even in rooms full of people. That's why you've experienced deep losses that seemed unfair. You were chosen, and to be chosen often means to be set apart, first by pain, then by purpose. They looked at your pain and thought it was weakness. They saw your quiet moments and mistook them for defeat, but they didn't see the prayers you whispered through clenched teeth. They didn't feel the spiritual battles you fought in the silence of your room. They didn't hear the divine instructions that God was whispering to you while everyone else was too busy watching your collapse. God hid you in the middle of your suffering because he was preparing a launch that required isolation. You weren't being left behind, you were being positioned. And the portal that's opening for you now could only be unlocked by that very pain you begged God to take away. You didn't cry for nothing. Every tear was an investment. Every sleepless night was a seed. Every closed door was heaven's strategy. You had to go through what you did, not because you deserved it, but because you were strong enough to survive it and sacred enough to be trusted with what's coming next. There's a storm that precedes the rising. The winds rage before the sun breaks through, and in the spirit, I see it now. Your breakthrough is coming in like fire. But not just to rescue you, to reveal you. This is not just a survival story, this is a resurrection. Every lie they told about you is about to be dismantled. Every label they placed on your name is about to fall off. They called you too sensitive, too broken, too strange, too much. But what they failed to realize is that God was shaping a vessel of light. You were not too much, you were always more than they could carry. The rejection you faced wasn't the end of your worth. It was the beginning of your awakening. You see, when heaven chooses someone, it doesn't look like a coronation at first. It looks like loneliness. It looks like failure. It looks like everyone walking away. But it's because God is building something in you that no one else is allowed to touch. He's constructing strength in your spirit, brick by brick, trial by trial. And the ones who laughed at your collapse will be the same ones who tremble at your rising. You are not cursed. You are called. You are not broken beyond repair. You are breaking free. The enemy tried to convince you that this was punishment, that your suffering meant you were somehow forgotten. But let me say this in no uncertain terms. You were never forgotten. In fact, God remembered you so deeply that he allowed you to pass through pain others couldn't have survived. Because what's inside of you is too powerful to be birthed in comfort. There's a difference between punishment and preparation, and what you went through was preparation. They didn't see how you kept getting up. how you kept loving when your heart was shattered, how you kept giving even when your soul was empty. They didn't see the quiet resilience, but heaven did. And that's why the shift is coming. That's why things are starting to shake. You're not stepping into a new season, you're stepping into a new dimension. The version of you that cried on that bathroom floor, who doubted your purpose, who questioned your worth. That version of you has served its purpose, but it cannot follow you through the portal. You're becoming, you're rising, you're crossing over. That's why it hurts so deeply, because it wasn't a scratch, it was surgery. It wasn't a fall, it was a birth. And every contraction of pain was pushing you toward your purpose. The pain didn't come to define you, it came to refine you. So let them keep watching, let them keep doubting, let them keep wondering how you're still standing, because soon they'll see. They'll see that what looked like ashes is about to ignite with divine fire. They'll see that the very thing they thought would destroy you became your launching ground. They'll see that the pain wasn't the end. It was the beginning of the greatest unveiling your life has ever known. Chosen one, don't run from what hurt you. Walk through it, because that pain is not your prison. It is your portal. You've walked through fire and still you breathe. You've been buried beneath judgment, betrayal, and loss. Yet here you are, still standing, still fighting, still rising. And I need you to understand something deep in your bones today. The battles you've endured were never random. They were marked by purpose, orchestrated by divine wisdom, permitted by heaven only because God knew what was inside of you was greater than what tried to break you. The enemy targeted you because of what you carry, not because of what you did wrong, but because of what you were destined to do right. When you were born, a mark was placed on your life, not by man, but by God. That mark made you a threat to every force of darkness. That mark stirred jealousy in people who didn't understand their own calling. That mark ignited silent wars in rooms where your name was mentioned, and you had no idea why the energy would shift. It wasn't just you, chosen one. It was the light within you. And light, true divine light, exposes things. That's why you've been attacked. That's why people close to you turned cold. That's why life sometimes felt like a battlefield with no armor to protect you and no allies beside you. Because God wasn't teaching you how to rely on people. He was teaching you how to rely on Him. Yes, you've lost some things, but what you gained in the Spirit far outweighs what they took from you. Every betrayal, it taught you discernment. Every loss, it taught you resilience. Every lie, it revealed the truth of your identity. And every spiritual attack, it forged a weapon inside of you that cannot be shaken. You didn't just survive, you were spiritually refined. You've become a warrior in silence. And while others were focused on appearances, God was focused on your anointing. There were moments when you felt like your prayers were hitting the ceiling, when your tears soaked your pillow but received no immediate answer, when the weight of everything tried to convince you that maybe, just maybe, God had overlooked you. But here is the truth. God didn't overlook you. He was overshadowing you. He was hiding you while He rebuilt you. He was silencing the noise so you could hear His voice. He was cutting away what couldn't go with you. Relationships, habits, mindsets, even opportunities, so you could walk unburdened through the next door. You weren't rejected. You were rerouted. You weren't abandoned. You were appointed. And every time someone tried to bury you, they were unknowingly planting you, because a seed doesn't grow without dirt and pressure and darkness. But once it breaks open, nothing can stop its rising. The same ones who tried to crush you are now watching in silence as the fruit begins to show. And I need you to understand this too. God saw it all. He saw what they did behind your back. He heard the conversations that tried to strip your name of honor. He watched the moments they smiled to your face and planned your downfall in secret. Nothing escaped His eyes. But the same God who watched in silence is now moving in power. There's a shift taking place in the unseen. The ground is trembling beneath your enemies, even though they're still smiling in public. The ones who mocked your pain are beginning to feel uneasy because your rising is undeniable. It can't be hidden anymore, and they're scared, not because of your revenge, but because of your resilience. Because nothing they did could stop you. Because what they meant for evil, God is now turning for good. And that kind of transformation terrifies people who built their identity around your collapse. Some of them needed you to stay broken because your healing threatens their illusion of power. But your healing is happening anyway. You're no longer trying to explain yourself to people who never cared to understand you. You're no longer seeking validation from the ones who only loved you in fragments. You're no longer carrying shame for being too sensitive, too spiritual, too emotional, too different, because you now realize your difference was the divine fingerprint all along. Chosen one, they feared your power because they sensed your purpose. That's why they tried to contain you, to shame you, to shrink you. They thought if they could exhaust you spiritually, emotionally, financially, they could control your future, but they forgot something crucial. Your source was never them. Your source was always God, and you can't destroy what heaven has ordained. Now, as the winds shift, those who dismissed you are sensing that something is changing. They don't know how to explain it, but they feel it. A quiet authority rising in your presence. A glow they can't dim. A strength they can't sabotage. You're walking differently, speaking differently, thinking differently. Because you've been through the fire and you didn't come out burned, you came out crowned. And this isn't ego, this is evidence. Evidence that you were chosen. Evidence that the pain was never pointless. Evidence that you have crossed through the portal and what lies ahead is sacred. So let them wonder. Let them gossip. Let them spin their stories. While they're busy watching, God is busy working. You're not trying to prove anything anymore, because the fruit will speak, the blessing will speak, the elevation will speak, the peace in your presence will speak, the glow in your eyes will speak. Because when you're chosen, you don't need to shout. The Spirit does it for you. And while others are trembling in confusion, you're standing in clarity. You finally understand why the warfare was so intense, why the pain was so prolonged, why the betrayals cut so deep. It wasn't because you were weak, it was because you were rare. Rare spirits carry rare assignments, and rare assignments require rare preparation. So no, the pain wasn't punishment, it was proof. Proof that God trusted you with something higher. Proof that your soul could carry something heavier. Proof that you could walk through the shadows and still carry light. And now that you've made it through, nothing will be the same. You are being elevated in plain sight. Your spirit is expanding beyond old limitations. The past can no longer hold you, and the future can no longer be delayed. The battles you faced were brutal, but they refined your spirit into something unshakable. And now, the angels who stood guard over your life in silence are rejoicing because the time of hiding is over. Chosen one, it's your time. Not to fight for approval, not to explain yourself, not to retaliate, but to rise. The storm didn't destroy you, it revealed you. And now, the world is about to see exactly who you are. Chosen one, the time has come. The silence is about to break. The hidden suffering, the private anguish, the quiet prayers that you whispered when no one was listening. God heard every single one, and now the judge of heaven is rising with righteous fire because your pain has reached his throne, and justice is no longer coming. It is here. You must understand something sacred now. Divine justice doesn't move like earthly revenge. It doesn't shout. It doesn't parade. It doesn't demand an audience. But when it arrives, it shifts everything, swiftly, completely, undeniably. And right now, there is a reversal unfolding in the spirit. The very people who tried to bury your name will now have to watch it rise. Those who mocked your humility will be humbled by your elevation. And the systems that seem designed to keep you stuck will now open before you like parted seas. because heaven is making a statement: you were never forgotten. This is not about ego or revenge or proving your enemies wrong. No, this is about alignment. This is about divine timing. This is about the unveiling of someone who was prepared in pain and trusted with truth. You, the chosen one. You went through what you did not because God was punishing you, but because He was positioning you. And now that you're stepping through that divine portal, everything that once looked like loss is revealing its true purpose. You didn't just survive, you passed the test. And the reward for that level of endurance is revelation. God is revealing you to the world, but more importantly, He's revealing you to you. You're finally seeing what He saw all along: the strength, the wisdom, the anointing, the grace. It wasn't obvious when you were in the dark. It didn't look like power when you were in tears. But it's clearer now. You were chosen not because you had it all together, but because you had the heart to keep going when everything was falling apart. You were chosen because you refused to turn bitter. You were chosen because even when you were rejected, you still loved. You were chosen because in your deepest pain, you still reached for God. And now God is reaching for you. This reversal, this divine turnaround, it's not only about vindication, it's about healing. Because when God elevates a chosen one, He heals in layers. He rewrites the narrative. He redeems the lost time. He restores what was taken, yes, but He also restores who you were before the breaking. Some of you lost your voice trying to keep the peace. Some of you shrunk your light to avoid triggering others' insecurities. Some of you forgot how powerful you are just to be accepted by people who never deserved access to your spirit. But that version of you is no longer in control. You're coming back to yourself now, but wiser, sharper, more discerning, more grounded, and more aware of your assignment. You are not here just to survive this life. You are here to shift atmospheres, to awaken hearts, to carry the frequency of heaven into places that have been dormant. Your presence is a signal. Your words are weapons. Your authenticity is healing. And because of that, you are dangerous to every lie, every illusion, every stronghold that once tried to bind you. That's why the battle was so fierce. That's why the attacks were so relentless. Not because you were cursed, but because you were carrying the blueprint for breakthrough, and the enemy saw it before you did. But now you see it. Now you know. Now you feel it in your bones, that deep, burning awareness that you are no longer who you were, that your spirit has been stretched too far to ever return to that old life, that your soul has become too illuminated to ever go back to the shadows. This is the point of no return. The portal has opened, and in this new space, you no longer explain your calling, you embody it. You no longer chase approval, you walk in authority. You no longer ask if you're enough. You know you are the evidence of God's grace. Chosen one, this is your time to declare it. I made it through, and not only did I survive, I understand now. You understand why they had to walk away. You understand why the doors had to shut. You understand why it felt like you were alone for so long, because isolation was protection, and protection was preparation, and preparation was the prerequisite for the promise that is now unfolding before you. Let them talk. Let them wonder. Let them speculate. The same mouths that tried to curse you will now speak of your favor, not because you begged for it, but because your blessing will be undeniable. God is making an open display, not of your pain, but of your purpose. And as you rise, it won't be loud or flashy. It will be quiet, solid, sacred, like the blooming of a flower after a long, cold winter. No one hears the petals unfold, but everyone sees the beauty. That is what you're becoming, a walking miracle, a living testimony. So now I speak this over you. You are victorious, not because life was easy, but because you never gave up. Not because you didn't cry, but because you cried and still rose. Not because you had all the answers, but because you trusted the one who did. And now in this divine moment, God is calling you to rise with purpose. So let the past be what it was, a teacher, not a cage. Let the pain be what it was, a portal, not a prison. Let your story unfold as it was always meant to, through fire, yes, but into glory. And now take this sacred truth and breathe it deep into your spirit. You were not buried, you were planted, and now it's your season to bloom. Your enemies, they're watching. Your angels, they're rejoicing. And heaven is thundering with one clear declaration over your life. Well done, now rise. Chosen one, you may still be asking, why did it have to be so brutal? Why the long nights? Why the silence? Why the betrayals, the repeated losses, the unexplainable warfare? Why were you targeted over and over again by people, by circumstances, even by thoughts that tried to convince you you'd never be enough? The truth is, what came against you was not personal. It was prophetic. The pain that tried to annihilate you had a mission, yes, but not one that heaven orchestrated to punish you. It was a divine paradox. What felt like destruction was actually construction. The shaking wasn't to ruin your life, it was to remove the lies that were choking your truth. The stripping wasn't cruelty, it was clarity. Everything you lost was attached to a version of you that couldn't carry your calling forward. Some people walked away, not because you failed, but because their presence would have contaminated your future. Some opportunities crumbled, not because you were unqualified, but because they were beneath your destiny. And some breakdowns happened, not to humiliate you, but to humble you, so that when the blessing arrived, you'd recognize it not as luck, but as legacy. God was never trying to hurt you. He was trying to heal you. But sometimes the healing requires exposure of wounds you didn't even know were infected, of beliefs you didn't know were blocking you, of people you didn't know were draining you. And so the spiritual surgery began. You didn't understand it then. How could you? When all you felt was pain, when all you saw were doors slamming shut, when all you heard was silence. But God was working behind the veil. He was orchestrating what looked like loss to deliver you from false identity. Because here's the truth. Before you rise, you must be reduced. Not in value, but in ego. Not in purpose, but in pride. Not in calling, but in clutter. God strips away the excess not to punish you, but to reveal your essence. And that's exactly what was happening. Those attacks, they weren't proof that you were weak. They were proof that you were on holy ground. The enemy doesn't waste energy on empty vessels. You were marked. Your life carried weight, and hell knew it. So it sent opposition to wear you out, to confuse you, to steal your voice before it ever found its power. But what hell underestimated was your soul's agreement with heaven. You didn't give up. Even in doubt, you stayed. Even in fear, you prayed. Even when everything in you screamed to quit, something deeper, something divine held you. And that was your spirit remembering who you are. Chosen, that word gets tossed around lightly, but its truth is heavy. To be chosen doesn't mean favored with ease. It means trusted with responsibility. It means your life becomes a vessel for a greater story, one that others will learn from, one that others will watch and weep over, one that others will point to and say, if they made it through that, maybe I can too. But here's the deeper layer. The people who hurt you were not your enemies. They were your mirrors. Yes, some were tools of darkness, but others were unconscious agents of your awakening. They exposed where you still needed healing. They showed you what you tolerated that didn't align with your worth. They revealed to you the power you had forgotten. And when they left, they gave you back to yourself. Because until you reclaim your authority, the world will treat you as optional. Until you speak from your core, people will feed you confusion. Until you walk in the fullness of who you are, life will keep reflecting fragments. And that's why God allowed the shaking, not to punish, but to realign, to bring you back to your divine center, to clear the fog of performance, people-pleasing, and programmed thinking, to destroy the illusions so you could finally see you were never meant to follow the crowd. You were always meant to awaken it, and awaken it you shall. But first, you had to see the mechanics of your pain. You had to recognize that not every closed door was an attack. some were a rescue, that not every unanswered prayer was a no. Some were a not yet, that not every delay was a rejection. Some were divine recalibrations. The portal God created for your destiny was never paved with perfection. It was paved with pain transformed into purpose. The pressure you felt wasn't punishment, it was pregnancy. Your soul was carrying a new dimension, and like all births, it came with labor, contractions, blood, stretching. But now the crowning moment is here. The veil has torn, the light is flooding in, and what you're about to walk into is not random. It's a result of what you endured without losing yourself. So breathe, take it in. You didn't come this far by accident. You've been trained by pain, yes, but now you are ruled by peace. Because peace is not the absence of conflict. It's the presence of clarity. You are no longer begging God to take you back to what broke you. You are no longer praying to fit into spaces that couldn't hold you. You are no longer apologizing for being spiritual in a shallow world. Because now you know who you are, and who you are terrifies every system that tried to oppress you. Your light is no longer dimmable. Your voice is no longer suppressed. Your energy is no longer fragmented. You are whole, because the pain that was meant to destroy you became the portal that awakened you. And now the question is not, why did I suffer? The question is, what am I here to do now that I've survived? The answer? To illuminate, to liberate, to speak, to lead, to heal. You were never meant to stay hidden behind the wall of your past. You were meant to walk out in power, in truth, in purpose. And that's exactly what's happening. Your soul didn't just go through darkness, it absorbed wisdom. And now you walk with both fire and compassion, with clarity and humility, with vision and depth. Because once you've passed through pain's portal, you stop walking like a victim and start moving like a vessel. You are no longer the same. You're sacred now. Chosen one, take a deep breath. Let this truth settle in your bones now. You were never broken, you were being built. What looked like destruction was the foundation of your becoming. What felt like punishment was heaven's invitation to a deeper version of you, a version untouched by fear, unshaken by loss, unchained from the expectations that once held you hostage. That pain was never the end. It was the threshold, the crossing point, the sacred signal that your old life had expired and your new season had begun. You didn't ask for this calling. You didn't beg for this weight, but it found you because heaven knew before you ever did that you had what it took to carry fire through darkness and not be consumed, to walk through the valley of shadows and still emerge with vision, to be misunderstood by many but deeply known by God. And now, the time has come for you to walk in it, fully, fearlessly, faithfully. No more shrinking, no more second-guessing, no more asking for permission from those who were never sent to understand your mission. You're not here to convince. You're here to embody. You're here to carry presence. You're here to shift atmospheres by your mere existence. You are not who they said you were. You are who God says you are. And that name, Chosen One, was not given by man. It was sealed in heaven long before the pain, long before the rejection, long before the fire. And the same God who allowed you to be pressed is now releasing you into the promise. This world will see the beauty of someone who rose from the ashes, not with bitterness, but with boldness. Someone who turned their scars into scripture. Someone who took their breaking and built a bridge for others. Someone who said, yes, I was wounded, but I kept walking. And in that walking, you've become a force, a vessel of light, a witness of divine reversal. Your presence now carries weight, and when you speak, heaven echoes. That's the reward for staying faithful in the silence. That's the reward for not folding when the pain felt unbearable. That's the reward for choosing healing over hiding, truth over comfort, obedience over popularity. God has not just restored what you lost, He has expanded who you are. And so now, Chosen One, I speak this into the atmosphere of your life. May your steps be ordered. May your voice be guided. May your spirit remain anchored even as you rise. May every place you enter feel the shift. May every eye that doubted now see the fruit. And may your enemies witness not your revenge, but your redemption. Let the glory go to God. Let the praise rise from your belly like fire. Let your walk be drenched in power and humility. And when people ask how you made it, when they ask why you didn't quit, why you didn't die in that darkness, you'll smile, maybe through tears, and say, because the pain wasn't a punishment, it was the portal. This is your legacy now. This is your moment. This is your mantle. Take it, wear it, and walk in it like the royal you are, not because you are perfect, but because you are purposed. The story is still unfolding, but the worst is behind you. The weight is lifting, the blessing is blooming, the gates are opening, and the glory is coming like thunder. So rise, chosen one, with your head high, with your heart whole, with your soul lit like a flame. And as you go, never forget, you are not alone. You were never abandoned. You were always loved. You were always seen. Now, go walk through that portal and don't look back.